Hi. There you go. I am Dr. Barmitzvah. This is ewar Alpha, episode 6, and we're going to talk about the races. A lot of this stuff is going to be really kind of general stuff, and the reason it's good to know is because it's a lot easier to kind of remember the overarching concepts of the 4 races than to memorize every ship in the game. And at some point, if you play long enough, you will know every ship in the game. You know, somebody says pretty much any ship, I go, oh, that's that, or I have an idea at least that uses this, or you know what its strengths and weaknesses are. Or I've flown against them before. I've, you know, not too many ships I haven't been on grid with that I could think of. I mean, honestly, the mining ships and industrial ships I probably know the least about, but I don't really have to worry about those much in faction warfare. That's mostly what I do. Or nullsec. They're just not around. So, where do we go? Okay, the 4 races. Let's look at maybe a map. That would be good. Look at the map of the empires. Let's see. Well, oh yeah, I should do an episode about the map one day. All the cool stuff you can do with this. But that's another time. I wonder if there's a way to clearly see the empires. Well, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, basically up here is, you can see the Caldari state, and there's Galente over there, and most of the southern part is all Amar. You have Mimitar over here. Where to begin? Alright, well, let me first go and we'll talk about the little ship thing. Ship tree, accessories. Ship tree, here we go. And first we'll go over here to Amar, and we'll start talking about Amar ships. In general, Amar, they use lasers, and they do have a line of drone boats. Their drone boats are definitely not as good as the Galentes. It's kind of like a secondary thing. But their lasers are great, especially when you get the Tech 2 pulse lasers, the shorter range ones. Most of their range is optimal, which means that if your optimal on your ship is 20k, you're going to have a 20k optimal. It doesn't matter if they're 10k away or 15k away; you're gonna hit them for the same damage. And then of course, before tracking is considered how fast they're moving and stuff like that, and their sig, and they have a little bit of fall off. Where like Mimitar, the projectile guns are a little bit of optimal and a whole lot of fall off. They're the opposite. And Galente is like half and half. The Amar weapons use crystals, which is one of the strengths of their race, and a lot of like bashing fleets people use to like tear down structures and stuff. Not so much anymore. Drones have gotten a lot more popular, but lasers were really popular because you didn't have to worry about ammo. You bring in one backup set of crystals, and it would last you a very, very long time. The other cool thing about Amar weapons is you can switch crystals instantly. As soon as you stop firing, boom, you can switch crystal. It instantly pops a new crystal in, and you can start firing. And the thing is, you're kind of locked with lasers to do EM and thermal damage. So like changing the crystals is more because you need better range or better tracking. And it kind of works the same. The pulse lasers are the short range ones, but like I said, Scorch is one of the longest range short range weapons. And with things like oracles, you can do some really cool stuff with shield oracles. Like that's an Amarr battlecruiser. It's kind of like their equivalent of the Tornado, I guess you would say, and those are really popular, so you probably know what that is. But oracles, you can get them out to like 70, 75k optimal range with Mega pulse lasers, the large pulse lasers. And the good thing about that is you're using a short range gun, so you have really good tracking, where the beam lasers have pretty bad tracking. As far as tank, the Amarr generally they're built for armor tanking. A lot of the ships, and we'll look at some now. Go ahead. The frigates are a good example. So here you have, let's see, it's the Punisher. 4% bonus to all armor resist, 10% reduction in small energy turret activation cost. So it saves you on cap for using lasers, and it gives you a 4% bonus to armor. So obviously it's a good ship for armor buffer. The other thing about resist bonuses is it makes it really good for Logi. Because when you have a bunch of stuff shooting at you, like, yeah, just having a bigger buffer is nice when you're fighting a one-on-one. But when you have a lot of things shooting at you, reducing 10% or 20% of all that incoming damage is a big, big number. And resistances are what will keep you alive in a big fight when Logi is repping you. How much damage is being negated just by resistance. And of course, the ewar for Amarr is the tracking disruptors and newts. They have ships bonus for those. And if you go to their destroyers right here, that's all. Cursors are all lasers, but the Dragoon is a drone and bonus to drone speed and bonus to newts and Nosfero, which newts just use some cap and then take away a bunch of cap. Nos steals cap, capacitor, whatever. And I'm not going to go real in depth. I just wanted to kind of talk about the weapon types, the strengths and weaknesses of the race overall, the ewar, the resistances. Generally speaking, with Amarr hates Minmatar. That's their prime enemy of the enemy empire in this game. So like Minmatar uses the damage type as their primary damage type, explosive. Although we'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get too complicated. And Amarr being EM thermal, which is one of the best damage types to shoot, is the best damage is to shoot at shield tanked Minmatar ships. So, but in general, the weakness for armor is going to be kinetic or explosive, depending, and the weakness for shield is going to be EM and thermal. If you're now the Tech 2 ships, pretty much all Tech 2s, and you hear people say things like, "Oh, it has the Tech 2 resist." Tech 2 resist means that the hole has been plugged. The hole for Amarr is explosive. But if you go to like a Tech 2, well, let me go to like certain Tech 2 ships, like say a Retribution. They're basically a Tech 2 version. They're the Vengeance. Tech 2 version of the Punisher. If you look at the ship and we go to traits, what is it? Tributes. Now look at its armor. Look at its explosive resist. It's huge, 80%. That's base. That's without anything fitted. Now let's look at a Punisher, the Tech 1, and you'll see the opposite. The smallest resist is explosive. So basically on Tech 2 ships, we're going to get a little bit into lore, but imagine the ship designer said, well, we fight Minmatar the most, so let's make the better version of this ship resistant to their damage the most. And that's really as far as it goes. So, real quick, just to recap, your ewar is tracking disrupt. Oh, I didn't get the tracker. I'll do that next. Tracking disruptors what they do is there's also missile disruption. They have two scripts. If you just put a tracking disruptor, you lock somebody up and you activate it without them without a script in the tracking disruptor. Sorry, I'm a little hungover today, so this is going to be kind of scatterbrained. if you don't have a script in your tracking disruptor, it will reduce the range of the weapon, both its optimal and fall off, and it will partly reduce the tracking, how quick the gun can turn. So if you're orbiting them closely, it's going to be really hard for a gun that's tracking disrupted to track you. You can put a script in it and make it so the tracking disruptor either does all of its power, it goes into disrupting your tracking, your ability to hit, or you can make it all your power goes into reducing the range of the weapon. So if you're not orbiting close, you want to reduce their tracking so their guns can't follow you. If you're far away and you're kiting, and you're orbiting them at 20K and keeping a long point on them, you want to reduce their range potentially so they can't hit out that far, and you're just beating on them until they die. That's kind of how that tracking disruptors work, and they're really strong. They're kind of underappreciated, underused, in my opinion. And that's just kind of a brief overview of the how the Amara race works. We got they're mostly armor tanked. They're mostly built to be armor tanked. Although like certain things, like I've seen shield tanked Omen navies work pretty good, stuff like that. Certain things with shield tanked oracles for specific stuff, but they're like pure DPS. But overall, you're gonna have armor tank. The tech ones, their lowest resist is gonna be explosive. Ooh, that's thunder. Their highest resist is EM, and the weapon types are EM thermal. And let's just go real quick. I talked about the drone boats. You have the destroyer. You have the Dragoon is a drone boat, and then if you go to the cruisers, you have like the arbitrator. It's bonus to drones, and weapon disruptor, tracking disruptor, or missile disruptor. And then you go up to cruiser, and you have the prophecy, which is armor resist and drone damage. And then battleship, you have a Geddon, which is bonus to newts, NOS, and drones. So they kind of, with the Amara, your like ewar and your drone boats are kind of the same line of ships. And then everything else is pretty much lasers. Your Punisher is lasers. Your Tormentor is lasers. That's your armor repping frigate. Remote rep. You rep other people with this ship. It's got bonuses to remote armor repair, range, and optimal. And Executioner is a another laser boat. It's basically like the Tech 1 version of an interceptor. And if you don't know your interceptors, they have the Tech 2 resist, which means they have a high explosive resistance and armor. And they're very, very fast ships. And one of them is bonus to tanking. The Malediction has a little bit bonus to armor resist. And the other one has a bonus to warp disruptor range. Point from further. I'm going to see exactly where. This one has a reduction in cost. Why is it? Oh, it's the same one. It has. Yeah, it's top interceptor bonus. 5% bonus to scrambler and warp disruptor range. Plus, this one has the tanking bonus and the range bonus. Weird. Okay, and then so you have your I was doing the Tech 1 version of that, and then you have your destroyers, which is basically just a laser boat and a drone boat. It's bonus for nukes. Your cruisers are, god damn it. Ugh. Your cruisers are Mauler, which is basically a giant fucking Punisher. It's got armor resists and laser bonuses. And Omen's like a gunboat, a little bit faster. Not bonus to armor, just all gun bonuses. And the Augurer is your Logi ship, your remote repair cruiser. And then you get the Harbinger is just a gunboat, uses medium lasers. Oracle is your it uses battleship guns, but it's actually a battle cruiser. These are your battle cruisers here. And that kind of gives you a diet. Now I could go through and do all these other ships exactly what they do. This is like your Tech 2 remote repair frigate, but that would take forever, and we got a lot of stuff to cover here. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at that. The most common stuff you'll see, and at least you know when you see Amar, you'll kind of go, okay, he's probably armor tanked. He's probably slow as shit, because armor tanking, most of the mods reduce your speed, increase your mass, your agility goes down. And that's one of the weaknesses of Amar is their speed when they're tanked. They're typically not that fast. That's where like the Omen Navy shines and like the Shield Oracle shines, is because they're pretty fast. They have high optimal and a lot of fucking damage, and they apply that damage really well. Especially the Omen Navy. Omen Navy can just murder frigates at far range, and especially like shield frigates like Merlin, because it's doing all EM thermal damage. It's very, very scary to those type of ships. Alright, let's get off of Mar. I think I covered everything basically I wanted to cover there. And we're going to go to our next race, Caldari. Um, Caldari is primarily a shield tank race. It pretty much is a shield tank race, and just like the Amar is armor tank, and they have a lot of low slots. Caldari has a lot of mid slots, so you have a lot of room for your shield tank. And their weapon systems are missiles. The Caldari and their other weapon system is blast or hybrid weapons, rails or blasters. And just like Amar has beam lasers and pulse lasers, hybrid weapons have blasters as their short range weapon and rails as the long range weapon. The short range weapon does a lot more damage. The long range weapon has a lot worse tracking. It's you have to be far away so it's easy to track. Because that's when the people talk about getting under your guns. That's like a ship using large rail guns won't be able to hit a frigate that's orbiting it because the guns just can't turn fast enough as the ship's going by every time it orbits. Think of it like that. But far away, that gun has to barely move to track that thing, and it'll nail it and pop it. And generally with the longer range weapons, they fire less often, but they do more damage in one shot than the short range weapons. They call that alpha, how much damage you do in one shot. We're not going to start with the noob ship. We'll go to the, I don't really do the noob ships because they don't really get used too much. Kestrel, it's got rocket bonuses, and rockets are basically like the frigate-sized missile weapon. Best way I can put it. Short range, high damage version of missile weapons. Kestrel's another missile boat, missile rocket boat. Merlin, it gets the Caldari 4% to shield resistances per level of Caldari frigate, and it gets a bonus to small hybrid turret damage, your blasters or rails. And these are really good brawler ships. I love them. They're fun. You can get them up to like 250 DPS and like 10k HP, which is pretty monstrous for a Tech 1 frigate. They're not incredibly fast, but they're fast enough. They're pretty fast. Pretty good ships. And that's one thing about Caldari is even though they're shield fit, the base speeds and agility of the ships is pretty low. So they're not very agile ships for being shield tanked. They're still better off than the Amar in that category, obviously, because they're not armor tanked, but they're not like Mimitar ships. That's one of the weaknesses probably of Caldari is their ships aren't very agile or fast. And shield tanking, where armor tanking reduces or increases your mass and slows you down, shield tanking increases your signature or your sig, which basically means your hitbox gets bigger. It's easier for those guns. They have easier target to hit from far away or close or whatever. So let's get right into it. You have your Bantam's just the remote shield repping ship, just like the Amar had the remote armor repping ship. Every race has like a logistics frigate. And then Missile Condor and Kestrel, both missile boats, light missile and rocket boats. And this is basically has the propulsion jamming activation cost. It saves cap on using like points or warp disruptor, if you want to call it that. And Griffin is their ewar. We'll get into their ewar in just a minute, ECM, because everyone hates it because it's so good. And then Heron is just their frigate for probing. When you get the Tech 2, you have the Cormorant, and these things are pretty nasty. They're set up for like long range small railguns. These things can hit out, even in a pretty newbie character, you can get them to hit out to like 60, 70, 80k range. And they don't do a whole lot of damage or a whole lot of alpha, but if you get enough of them together, they're pretty freaking scary. They can just melt stuff off the field from very far away. And as a blaster boat, you can get pretty high DPS at them as well, but you got to be right on top of stuff, and they're not very tanky ships. Destroyers in general are not very tanky. Well, at least Tech 1 destroyers. And this is their missile destroyer. So just like Amar has like a laser destroyer and a drone destroyer, with Caldari we have a hybrid destroyer with hybrid weapons and a missile destroyer. And then when we go to the cruisers, we get their Osprey, which is the remote repping. It has bonuses to repping shields for other ships, repairing, whatever you want to call it. And Caracal is their cruiser missile boat. Very good ship. Rapid light missiles are very good because with missiles you have explosion radius and explosion velocity, and basically the speed of the ship. They're outrunning some of the explosion when the missile pops, when it blows up on them. So they get a damage reduction for their speed when a missile hits them. Also, they get a damage reduction for their signature. If you're using big-ass missiles to hit a little target, it's not going to apply a lot of damage well. However, Caracals are basically using frigate missiles, light missiles. So, and they have a rapid launcher which shoots them out very quick, but it has a long reload time. So, and that's one of the things I was talking about where Amar shines is you can change laser crystals, you reload instantly, essentially, and they don't have a lot of ammo. With Caldari, with missiles, they have like a 10-second reload time, unless the rapid versions, the rapid light missile launchers, have a 1 minute. I think it's 1 minute. Is it 30 seconds or a minute? Yeah, I'm not in the right state of mind right now. But it's a very long time. And I think it was originally a minute and they reduced it to 30 seconds or something. I don't remember that. I don't remember. A minute seems too long, but it could be. Anywho, and then we'll go on to MOAs, which is basically a giant Merlin. Just like the Amar had the Punisher and the Mauler. Merlin MOA. MOA has bonus to shield resist and bonus to turret damage. Or hybrid turret damage, I'd say. And the Blackbird is the ECM ship. And then we go up to the battle cruisers. You get the kind of same thing. You get a Ferox, which is bonus to shield resists and hybrid weapons. Drake is a missile boat, shield resist and missiles. And Naga is a battle cruiser that can use battleship-sized guns, rails, or I don't think you want to use blasters because these really aren't tanky enough for brawling. And then you get your battleships, and our Scorpion is one of the unique battleships in the Tech 1 that it uses like their primary ewar ECM. Roke is a giant fucking Merlin, battleship Merlin, or MOA, and Raven is the missile one. It's not too. And I'm not a big fan of the Raven or the Drake, not because the ships are the holes. It's just the weapon system. They use heavy missiles. That's their bonus for, or in this case, Raven's case, torpedoes, cruise missiles, and heavy missiles can't hit things well. They lose a lot of their, like, you might have 600 damage on paper, but when you're shooting a fucking frigate or a cruiser, like, most of that damage isn't applying because the ship's speed and signature are reducing it so much. And I don't really feel like heavy missiles are very well balanced in that regard. They just don't apply their damage well enough to be effective. Compared to some of the other options. I'm tired. I'm half sick. This is gonna be a shitty show. Sorry about that. So real quick. ECM. ECM is an obnoxious little thing, and most people hate it because they're ewar. The Griffin does it. The Blackbird does it. In their Tech 2 version, they have the Tech 2 ewar frigate, which is the where is it? Carries. No, there's just stealth bombers. Kitsune, I mean. Kitsune, not carries. Kitsune is the Tech 2 Griffin, basically. And over here you have the Blackbird. They changed the model, so I don't recognize them. Blackbird's their ECM cruiser, and they have the Tech 2 version is the Falcon, which is a poor because it cloaks and it decloaks and it jams like 5 fucking ships at a time, and then you're basically flying bricks. When you're jammed, you can't lock anything. But the counter to that's kind of having drone boats, because the drones can be attacking without you locking somebody. So if I lock you up with my drones on you and then I get jammed, my drones will keep shooting. I can't change them to a new target, but they'll keep shooting. And the Rook doesn't appear on D-scan, but it uses ECM. So that's kind of the ewar. And Caldari is unique, and it's the only race that has just one ewar. With Amar, you get newts and tracking disruptors. With Mimitar, you get webs and painters. With Galente, you get bonuses to sensor dampeners and point range. Scramblers, disruptors. That's their ewar bonus. But with Caldari, you only get the one bonus. And that pretty much covers. Oh, the resistances. When you go ahead and click on a ship here, the base resist, the lowest. Why is that? Oh, here you go. Shield resist. The lowest resist, it has 0% shield EM. So like I was saying, remember I was saying the Omen is very scary to the Omen Navy because it's shooting EM thermal damage, and those resists are very low. However, if you go to a Tech 2 version of a Merlin, such as the Harpy, which is an assault frigate, it has the Tech 2 resists. Its highest shield resist. Oh, it's a thermal that's big. I felt like it should have been this. But they're not. Caldari is friends with the Amar, so they're tanking for the Galente, which is their enemy. Their prime enemy in the game is Galente, who use thermal and kinetic damage. So I was wrong about that. The EMs is still 0, but they're tanked for this. So they're tanked to fight the Galente. So when you fit up a Harpy, you gotta plug this hole. Usually people use like a small anti-EM screen reinforcer or 2, or Tech 2-1, or they'll use, they'll use something. Between the damage control, like an adaptive invulnerability field, which is a mid-slot resist rig, or mid-slot resist mod, and a rig to increase this, they'll bring this up to par with at least some of the others. But if you're shooting Caldari, you probably want to shoot EM, right? And let's see. So that's a little bit about their resists, their damage types. All the missiles on whatchamacallit, Caldari ships are bonus for kinetic missiles more than the other missiles. And I don't know if it's true across the board. They've been kind of fixing this, but see, 10% bonus to kinetic light missile and rocket damage, where this gets a 5% bonus to any missiles or rockets. So you're kind of damage locked. If you want to get that big ass bonus on a Condor, you have to use the kinetic missiles. Good to know. So, and I think the Drake is the same way too. It's bonus. Yeah, it gets a big bonus to kinetic missiles, heavy missiles, and heavy assault missiles. Heavy assault missiles are also known as hams. If you talk about, oh, my ham launcher, it's a heavy assault missile. And I'm pretty sure that Caracals are not locked to a damage type the way Drakes and Condors are. As far as the hybrid weapons, and this is true for Galente and Caldari, both use hybrid weapons, rails and blasters. They do thermal kinetic damage. They cannot do other damage types. They do those 2 type damage, that's it. Just like Amar does EM thermal. Alright, hybrid weapons do kinetic and thermal. And moving right along, let's go to Galente. Galente are primarily an armor race, and where like Amar gets resistances and Caldari gets shield resistances, Galente gets armor repairing bonuses, and Mimitar gets shield repairing bonuses on their tanky ships. Right? So, and here's the example of that would be the Incursus. Gets a 7.5% bonus per level to armor repair amount and small hybrid turrets. It's actually, the Galente ships make really good solo boats because of their armor repping. You can turn your cap into tank. Whereas in like a fleet, like a Punisher would probably be better, because if he's receiving reps and a lot of things are shooting him, those resistance bonuses are going to be better than a self-repair bonus. Okay? So, and then their primary weapons for Galente are drones and hybrids. And hybrids have, I should have said this earlier, but where lasers are on one end where they change ammo instantly, and projectiles and missiles take 10 seconds, hybrids are right in the middle. They take 5 seconds. And they'd use some capacitor, like lasers, they use some energy, but they also use ammo. So they're a mix of like projectile weapons and energy weapons like lasers. They're right in the middle. They use some caps, some ammo. And also how and they have they're right in the middle in reload time. And I was going to say something else and I forgot it. Anyway, and then they do kinetic and therm damage. There's one last thing. What was it? This thing isn't working. Come on. I figured it out. Anyway, so you go into drone boats, and you got their bonus, their weapon system. Their bonus to is drones, and their drone boats are way better than the Amara ones. Like Algos just is way better than a Dragoon, the Amara one, in my opinion. And the other interesting thing about Galente's ships is they have the most structure. And when you have those little 3 bars above your capacitor when you're out in space, the top one's shield, the second one's armor, the third one's structure. Now the only way to get resistances on your structure is a damage control. It gives you big resistances to structure and a little bit of shield and armor resist. And those resistances don't face stacking penalties. If you stick a bunch of, say, EM shield resist mods, they start to lose effectiveness. They do less than what they say the more of them you put on there to boost that stat. That's called stacking penalties. When you stack the same bonuses from mods, they get reduced. Where a damage control, that doesn't apply. They give the full bonuses that it says in the mod always. And then when you get to like they start with the most base structure, so when you put bulkheads on it in the low slots and the mod slots, they get a % increase on their structure. So having the highest base structure means they get the most out of that. And the cool thing about structure tanking is it doesn't have the downsides. You don't get increased SIG like you do with shield, and you don't get increased or decreased agility and speed like Amar does. Oh yeah, I remember what I forgot before. And how we were talking about the weapon systems with lasers and projectiles. When lasers, almost all of their range is optimal, and projectiles, most of their range is fall off. And fall off just means if you're in the fall off, if you're in optimal, it doesn't matter what range. If you're in that optimal, it's gonna hit the same DPS as if you're not moving or whatever. With projectiles, the damage gets reduced by range. The further into the fall off you are, the more the damage gets reduced. With hybrids, if I say my rails have a 60k range like this Cormorant, that's going to be about 50-50. Like half of its range is going to be fall off and half of it's going to be optimal. Right in the middle. So the strengths, and we'll go over the ships real quick, the Tech 1 ships at least. And their ewar is sensor dampeners. Sensor dampeners are kind of like tracking disruptors. You can use them unscripted, or you can put a script bonus one way or the other. What they do is when I lock somebody, I put a sensor dampener on them. It reduces their range by 1%, and their lock range, where the tracking disruptor reduces gun range or missile range specifically, they reduce lock range dampeners, and they also increase the time it takes to lock something. They reduce your scan resolution, which means it could take something a very, very long time to lock something like a frigate. It takes longer to lock small stuff. But you can put a script in your dampener and make it do all of one or the other. I can greatly reduce your lock range, or I can greatly reduce your lock time. And if I'm fighting an armor fleet and all their ships are in a little ball, and they have like 2 Logi ships, decreasing the range of those Logi ships isn't going to be that useful, because they're all right there. And I would have to, even if I cut it in half or cut it in a third, they're still going to be able to reach their buddies and give them reps. However, if I reduce their locking time, I can make it so that when we're changing targets, trying to hit a new target the Logi isn't repairing, it's going to take those 2 Logi ships a lot longer to lock that ship and get repairs on him, which means we might get a second shot on him or a third shot in on him before the reps land. And we'll pop him and try to blast him, blast through all his tank before he catches reps. And that's where you might want to use the different types of dampeners, or different scripts in your dampeners, I should say. And the other bonus to their ewar besides dampeners is point range. That's basically their Tech 2 bonus. Like if you look at a carries, it's like their Tech 1 ewar is a Mollis, and you can see it's all bonus to sensor dampeners. And if you look at a carries, it gets the same bonuses to sensor dampeners, but it also gets bonuses to warp scram and warp disruptor range and activation cost. So it's a nasty little beast. If you put like a faction point in it, this thing will point you at like 60k or 50k or something like that. It gets a big bonus to the range of its points. Well, no, it wouldn't be that. Well, it'd be something like that. It'd be 48k or something. I think with like a Republic fleet warp disruptor has the longest range of any warp disruptor. With a Tech 2, you probably only get up to like 38 or something. I don't know the exact numbers off my head, but you get the idea. It's much further. They can hold you on the field with these. So we'll go over it real quick. You got the Navitas, which is their remote armor repair. It's their frigate Logi. You got your Tristan, which is their frigate drone boat. And these little suckers, people like to shield tank these to keep them fast, and then they just orbit you at 20k, and a lot of frigates can't hit that far, and they put their drones on you, and they just wait till you die. It's a kitey ship. They kite you. They stay out of your gun range. If you try to go after them, they run away. If you try to run away, they come after you, and they never let that space between you change. Whichever way you're going, you come at me, I back up. You go that way, I follow. I never let you get on top of me to scram me and stop my micro warp drive and use your close range damage on me, like blasters or something. But I also never let you leave. I can make sure you don't get out of my point range. That's what kiting essentially is, regardless of what the range happens to be you're doing it at. And Atron is just a like their Tech 1 interceptor. It's got a bonus to like warp. Just the propulsion jamming activation cost is reduces the cap need of warp disruptors and scramblers. Blasters have really high damage. Of all the weapon systems, blasters have the most base damage. But like small blasters, you have to be like less than 1000k off somebody to be in the optimal and apply that full damage. I think it's about that. And let's see, we'll just go on to the ships. And Maulus is the sensor dampener. Incursus is the armor repair and blaster one. Really good frigate, because you can make them really tanky and really high damage. They're not exceptionally fast once you do that, because you pretty much have to fit an AB to make good use of the other bonuses. But when you're in like faction warfare in a novice plex, there's not a whole lot of things that can go in a novice plex and want to brawl an Incursus, just because you can't start at range. You come through the gate, and if he like scram whiffs you, he's going to do more damage with blasters, and he's probably going to tank better with his armor repair bonus. I mean, I'm not saying it's like the end-all be-all, but they're pretty good. They have a pretty wide menu of what they can eat in a novice plex. Catalyst is the Galente hybrid guns destroyer, and Algos is their drone boat destroyer. Vexor, very good ship, is their drone boat cruiser. Very good bonuses, and a lot of people will, even though they don't have armor repping bonuses, a lot of people for like solo or small game will fit these with like 2 armor reppers. One of the advantages of this race in using drones is that drones don't go in your high slots, so you're saving all kinds of fitting because your weapon system doesn't use power grid or CPU. It uses drone bandwidth. So it makes them really flexible. You have all this power grid and CPU to play with. You can make them shield fit if you want to be faster. You can make them armor fit if you want to be tankier. You can make them armor rep fit if you want to bait. Make them think, oh, they're getting through your armor, all of a sudden your armor repairs. The VNI, and for alphas, this is probably the most powerful ship I can think of that an alpha can fly, because they can use the battleship drones, the sentry drones, and that's a very unique thing. And Vexor navies are super good. They get great bonuses. They're very fast. And there's a billion ways you can fit them, so flexible, because you're not using up all that power grid and CPU on guns. And X-Core Navy's not bad either, but it has to get right on top of stuff to really do damage, do good damage. Same thing with Thorax. Thorax is a blaster boat, or a blaster. You can do it with rails. It gets a tracking speed bonus, which helps the rails bad tracking. Rails are your long-range hybrid weapon. Celestis is a giant Maulus. It's the bonus to sensor dampeners. It's a pretty good cruiser. It's pretty useful. Is an ewar ship, anyway, support ship, whatever you want to call it. They're battle cruisers. You get the Brutix, and these things, Brutix and Brutix navies have one of the highest base structures in the game, and which means that you can, and they have a lot of slots, so you can structure tank them and get like 100,000, 125,000. I've seen more, or right around that area. EHP or HP with structure tanking. which catches people off guard, because a lot of times people go through your shield real fast and like, oh, he must be armor tanked, and they go through your armor kind of quick and they're like, oh man, this guy isn't tanked at all, and they get to your structure and it just starts barely crawling, because that's all your health is, that last bar. And they'll keep shooting him, because normally 9 times out of 10 when someone's in the structure it's like, oh, he's almost dead. Not with the Brutix Navy or Brutix, so keep an eye on that. And Galente ships in general are very good at structure take. Talos is like the Oracle or the was it a Naga? I always get those confused for Caldari, but it's a battle cruiser that uses large hybrids, the battleship size guns. And the Myrmidon, very cool ship, kind of underappreciated, gets a big armor rep bonus and a drone bonus. And one of the cool things, like I've seen dual rep Myrms, triple rep Myrms, but they can tank quite a bit. All your high slots are open because you're a drone boat, so you can either put guns in there if you want a little more damage, or you can put things like newts up there. And then their mid slots, generally they'll have a cap booster so they can inject capacitor, and they always have plenty of cap coming in until they run out of cap boosters in their cargo hold. And they'll feed themselves cap, and they can keep repping, keep newting, and their mid slots, they can use them to kind of like have anti-tackle built in. You can have like newts and things like webs and scrams in your mid slots, and then when a frigate comes in to tackle you, you just beat it down with some light drones and newt it out and just keep going on about your business. But they're also very scary to other cruisers and other battle cruisers because they do tank so well, and they can put out quite a bit of damage, and they have a ton of utility because their fitting is so free. And so that's the strengths of Galente is definitely the fitting freedom drone boats offer, the damage blasters offer. They're great ships. And these are the battleships. Megathron is a big blaster boat, very, very high damage. And especially the more expensive ones, which one is not Megathron, but the Vindicator, Kronos. Those things have, you'll see these in like the Alliance tournament. The Vindicator is a pirate one, I'm sorry. And then Hyperion is it just uses that ship model, is a blast. It's kind of like a giant Incursus. It has an armor rep bonus and a blaster bonus, or a hybrid bonus. I shouldn't say blasters because it could be rails, but that would be terrible. Don't use a rail Hyperion. And Dominix is a big ass Vexor basically. It's one of the things people are using. You ever heard the term spider tanking? It became very popular in ships like this because they put in their high slots, even though they're not bonused for it, they put remote repairers. And 3 dummies will sit on top of each other, and when you shoot one, the other 2 start repairing it, and all of them have their drones on you. And that's one of the things that fitting freedom provides, is easy spider taking. And we're not going to go up to class. And the Moros is one of the most preferred dreads, probably the most preferred dread, just because it's very high damage on. It's the highest damage, and that's really what dreadnoughts are there for, is pumping out damage. And I'm not going to go into all the other Tech 2 stuff as always, because maybe some other time. And let's go ahead to we'll get our last race here, the Mini. The Mimitar, they use projectile weapons. They're the only race that uses them. They're better bonus for them, I should say. And their backup weapon is missile systems. But they don't have a whole lot of missile boats. Projectile weapons do most of their range. If it says 17k fall off, is in fall off, which means the further into that fall off the enemy is, the less damage you do. Your damage has a big reduction. And you can look on DPS graph where like things like Amar ships will have a nice flat line like this for your everything within range, and then it drops off very sharply once you get outside their optimal. A Mimitar ship's range would look more like that. The further away you get, the lower the damage is. Nice smooth arc. That's kind of how fall off works. Oh, did I forget to talk about? No, I didn't talk about Galente Resist. Let me just do that real quick. Go back one step here. The Galente Resists, they're enemies with the Caldari, so their lowest resist is generally kinetic. Actually, it's explosive, which is kind of weird for that. And that's a Mimitar weapon. Whatever. And then their Tech 2, though, they plugged that hole. I would think that their Tech 2 should have the highest resistance kinetic, because they're enemies with the Caldari. There it is. Their Tech 2s are bonus to have a big ass base kinetic resist, because their enemy is Caldari. kinetic and thermal apparently, because I guess they use blasters too. Interesting stuff. See, a lot of the rules have like they're not 100% all the time. They have exceptions. Let's see, and then they're yeah, it's normal. Okay, so let's go back to Minotaur. Sorry, I just forgot to mention that about the resists with the Tech 2 resist. So back to where I was, projectiles. Talked about fall off, and the great thing with projectiles is they have ammo for every damage type. It's just like missiles, you can use any damage type, where like hybrids and lasers are stuck on a certain damage type. With Minotaur, you can use EMP ammo, you can use thermal ammo, you can use kinetic or explosive ammo. And generally the kinetic ammo kind of sucks for Minotaur. Not a lot of people use it unless you're trying to track something, because they are better at tracking. And oh yeah, Minotaur is also a very flexible race, because there's like where Galente and Amar have a lot of low slots for armor tanking, and Caldari has a lot of mid slots for shield tanking. Minotaur are kind of right in the middle. They typically have the same amount of mid slots as low slots, so you can go either way with them. Generally, most people, I think, shield tank them. I've seen plenty of like brawling rifters that were like armor rep fit and stuff like that. But they're flexible. You can do a lot of things with them. Minotaur ships, their biggest strength is they're the fastest ships. They're the fastest race in the game. Their ships have the highest base speeds, and that gets magnified when you put a micro warp drive, because it's 5 times that speed, whatever the base speed is. So Minotaur, fast ships. They will run your ass down, but their tanking bonus is shield repair. Where like breachers get that bonus. Let's see if I just saw one a second ago. There it is. Breacher 7.5 to shield booster amount. So like the Galente get armor rep bonus, they get self shield rep bonus. The Amar have resistance armor. The Kadari have resistance to shield damage as their tanking bonuses. And the Breacher uses a light missile, their secondary weapon system, and I think most of the other ones. A burst is their Logi frigate. And then your Rifter gets all bonus to projectiles. Oh, I can't talk today. We'll get into ewar in a second. Slasher is like their mini interceptor, and Probe's their probing one. Literally called a probe, kind of weird. Vigil, and they have the Tower is a great missile boat. The other equivalent of it is almost a Corax, but it's a little bit better because it's so fast, and it gets a reduction to signature. When you use a micro warp drive, your signature blooms. It gets 500% bigger, just like your speed. And this has a reduction to that bloom, so you don't become such a quite easy target when you're putting a micro warp drive. And it gets a range bonus on its missiles. So these things, you get like a bunch of these things together, and you can start lobbing like 20 dudes with towers can shoot volleys of light missiles very far. You can start hitting people at 70k. They're fast and they're agile and they're hard to hit. So you can actually get really good trades with these. And they're very, very popular in a lot of groups, and they're cheap. So towers are respect the towers. You see a bunch of towers. I've actually been in fights where we had like 30 of these things against like a 20-man cruiser gang, and we won because the cruisers were armor tanked. We were faster and had much more range, so we're out at 50, 60k. They can't even hit us, and every time 30 of us, we all shoot at the same target, a big blob of missiles comes out, and missiles have very high alpha damage. That is the damage they do in one hit, but their DPS is low. So they don't fire very often, but there's a lot of damage in every volley. So what happens is, if you have 30 of these things, and they all shoot their missiles, when all those missiles hit the target at the same time, he suddenly takes 20, 30,000 damage all at once. And it doesn't matter if there's a repping ship, because that rep cycle takes time, and all of a sudden he just got his whole HP removed. So you can start blasting cruisers right out from the Logi fleet, and people get upset because they're like, why are these 1 million-isk fucking ships wrecking my cruisers? They get butthurt because they don't. It's just lack of understanding of mechanics, I guess. And in general, Minotaur weapons have the highest alpha. On their guns, there's autocannons are their short-range guns, and artillery are their long-range guns. Just like you have blasters and rails, or pulse lasers, beam lasers, you have autocannons and arties. Arties have the highest alpha of any weapon system. So that makes them very, very popular, especially in big fleet fights, because like I said, it's crucial to kill stuff before the Logi can even repair it. So the more damage you can do at one or two hits, the more likely you are to pop ships with Logi trying to rep them. And tornadoes are very, very popular. They are the battle cruiser that uses the battleship-sized guns, and these things can do like an insane amount of alpha. I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to go throwing numbers around that are wrong, but it's probably like somewhere in the ballpark of 7,000-8,000, probably depending on your fit, a little more, a little less. They can do a one shot from very far away, so they're very popular for that reason. And also in battleships, a long time ago, not so much these days, but Maelstroms were very popular for the same reason, because you put a whole rack of large artillery on there and just start blapping shit. And it has a ton of minute slots, so you can take the shit out of it. What else? Ewar. The Ewar for Minmatar is painters and webs. Painters being their Tech 1, all their Tech 1 ships, like the Vigil has painter bonus, and the Bellicose has a painter bonus, and their Tech 2 ships, however, the where is it? Not those. Those are assault frigates, those are some stealth bombers. Hyena! Bonus to web range. Webs slow you down. This thing is scary. Not as scary as, say, a Rapier, or Hugin, because they get a really, really big bonus to web range. They'll be webbing you at like 50, 60k with a faction web, probably a little bit more with links in a faction web, but about that range. And a lot of people use them for gate camps, so when you come through the gate and you say, oh shit, there's 30 dudes here and you want to go back that way, they'll have two webs on a Hugin, and you're barely moving at that point. Someone else will scram you, and you're dead. You're not making it back to the gate if they have enough guns there, and you're not, that's a very popular thing. And I've seen like Loki's too, their Tech 3 with setup to use their web bonuses. Painters, what target painters do is they basically just paint the target with a laser and make it easier to hit. They bloom your SIG the same way like a micro warp drive. When you activate your micro warp drive, it makes your SIG bigger. A painter, you put it on somebody and makes their SIG bigger. So if you have, especially if you're hitting small targets, like trying to hit frigates or cruisers or something with big guns from far away, these things are really, really good, and they're kind of underappreciated. And a Vigil is a very, very good ship. I don't really like, in pretty much all the races, the cruiser Tech 1 Ewars suck. You should pretty much always use the Tech 1 ones. The Vigil is better than the Bellicose because it is cap stable. It has more locking range than the cruiser version, and neither of those things is, the Bellicose, you have to put a bunch of mods just to get the range on it. You can't even fit that many painters on it. It's easier to hit because it's got a bigger SIG and it's slower. Like, literally everything about the Vigil is better. It's faster, it's harder to hit, it got more range, and it's cap stable. Bellicose is not a good ship. The same thing with like Arbitrators and Crucifiers. The Crucifiers, I think it's the Crucifiers, the Tech 1 track disruption. Anyway, no, I'm wrong about that. Can't think about it. Anyway, Arbitrators suck compared to those, in my opinion. And Griffins are better than Blackbirds, in my opinion. And where the Blackbird has a little bit better range, the Griffin is faster, harder to hit, and it locks, and the frigates lock faster. When you're a smaller ship locking something, you lock faster than a cruiser locking a frigate. So if a Griffin and a Blackbird get into it, the Griffin's always going to get a chance to jam the Blackbird first, and then he's fucked. As long as he keeps landing jams. So that's what target painters do. A lot of people, they're kind of underappreciated, but I was in Pandemic Horde for a while, and they were loving their Ferox fleets, and they had rail Feroxes, so they're shooting rails at like 60k at an enemy fleet, Cerberuses, stuff like that. And I would go a lot in painters, and I could I don't think people believe me when I told them, but like I could feel it when I put painters. I would lock up the targets the FC called, and he would shoot. I see everyone shooting him, and as soon as I turn on those painters, you're just gone, because all of a sudden the other 50 Feroxes can all apply their damage fully or better, closer to full damage, and it would just erase shit. As soon as I turn those painters on, I could feel it. I could just watch the shit go down. Boom, its whole shield get erased. Like twice as much damage was getting applied from the same firepower. So definitely an underappreciated shit. So we went over those. Talwar is the missile one. Thrashers are awesome because you put a rack of 7 small arties, and you can just pop a lot of frigates. You get 2 or 3 of these together, and we do it quite a lot. We go around faction warfare space. I killed a Garmer the other day with a Thrasher because he got in too close, and I had a buddy with me with a Vigil, and the Vigil fleet, which gets a web bonus like the Hyena, and he dual webbed the Garmer, and I hit him like 3 or 4 times with an Arnie Thrasher and just erased him. It might have been 3 shots, I think. Boom, boom, boom. Like I hit him twice, and then the webs landed, and as soon as he lost his speed, boom, Thrasher just one-shot half his health off. So that high alpha is scary. People don't realize that even though your ship might have better stats than an Artie Thrasher, when you're coming into close range in an Artie Thrasher, when you're 17k out or 20k out, he's going to get that first shot in, and it's going to fucking hurt. And by the time he's going to get another shot in, when you were just getting on top of him, you've already lost a huge portion of your health before you actually get on him to do your damage with like a blaster boat or something, or even for autocannons or something like this. So that's one of the things where people really underestimate these to this day. They just don't realize how much damage those things do in one volley. The cruisers, you have a scythe, excuse me. This C is not supposed to be pronounced. And they repair other ships' shields. Their Orlaji ship. And Bellicose is their ewar ship, which I don't really like. The only thing it has over the Vigil is you can kind of set these up with like drones and rapid light missiles, and they can be pretty fucking scary to frigates. So they can serve as like a kind of like a semi-caracal, like anti-tackle role, and then they can also paint to make the rest of the fleet's damage more effective. Stabber is kind of a unique cruiser. It's probably it is the fastest Tech 1 cruiser in the game. Well, non-faction, of course, but it kind of like I saw a good Chesser video. If you ever look up Chesser SB on YouTube, he does a lot of great PvP videos. He's very, very good. And this is one of the ships he likes to use because people underestimate it so much. You don't see a lot of them, but one of the things he says in his videos, you kind of fly it like a frigate or a destroyer. You don't really fly it like a cruiser because it's so much faster than normal cruisers. And it's an interesting ship. The Rupture is just their gunboat. It's like think giant Rifter. They're pretty good because, like I said, a lot of people like to use these with Arties, and they use the Tech 2 ones. These are pretty popular in Munins. You see, they get a lot of bonuses to projectiles, and they're good Artie boats. And then you got what is this? Yeah, that's it. And then their battle cruisers. A Cyclone, not very popular. It's a missile boat with a shield boosting bonus, and they can be pretty tanky, but heavy missiles are in such a bad place that basically that's why the Cyclone and the Drake, you just don't see a lot of them. They're kind of like joke ships at this point. I mean, they're not fucking terrible, but one of their biggest strengths is just the fact that people underestimate them because they are kind of bad. So people will take them on when they shouldn't, but if people, they're not very good ships. The heavy missiles need to be fixed. Hurricanes are, a battlecruiser sized gunboat. They're one of the faster battlecruisers. They're very scary to a lot of other ships. A lot of other cruisers don't want to face off with a Hurricane because their damage is really high. They're fast. Projectiles, weapons don't use any capacitor, and usually they have a utility. All the gunboats for Mimitar have empty high slots they can put newts in, so they have all that cap to spend burning up your cap. Makes them a little bit scarier, a lot of things. And then we gotta talk about the Tornado, and that's kind of it. The Typhoon is just Typhoons are pretty good. The rapid heavy missiles aren't terrible, like the regular heavy missiles. And they're very fast. You can get these things pretty fast, like Nanophoons. Not terrible. And you get them pretty high health, too. They're pretty good. Maelstroms are really good if you want to get into like level 4 missioning. These are like the noob. This is what my old corp used to tell everyone to get into because you can get into them pretty quick. The thing with a lot of the races, to use their guns good, you need the Tech 2 guns because you want to use the Tech 2 ammo. Especially true with Amar. You want the Tech 2, like the Scorch crystals, give you all that huge optimal range for pulse lasers. And with, like, obviously Galente, you want the Tech 2 drones. With blasters, you want to be able to use the Tech 2 ammo, which is, was it Void? Yeah, Void is the highest damage ammo. And it's Tech 2, so you need Tech 2 guns to use it. But with Mimitar, the Tech 2 ammo is Barrage, and it's not that great. Pretty sure everyone pretty much uses Republic Fleet Phase Plasma, just because it's kind of like the best of both worlds, and it's tracking and it's damage, and the choosable damage types. You can use EMP, you can use Republic Fleet EMP, Republic Fleet Thermal, Republic Fleet Exfusion, which is explosive. Where was I? And then but the thing is, you don't need Tech 2 guns because you're not using Tech 2 ammo with a lot of these. So with like a Maelstrom, you don't have to. It's a lot of training time you don't have to put in to train Tech 2 arties, large arties. You just got to get to the Tech 1 arties, and you can use Republic Fleet Phased or Fusion, whichever you prefer, or whatever you're shooting at. So that's one of the things that kind of Minmatar has a little advantage in. It's a little bit easier to train because you don't have to use. You're not stuck like basically forced to use the Tech 2 guns to get the most out of them. Although it does help, you will get a little more damage because you'll have skills that give you a little more damage for the Tech 2 weapon systems, but it's not so much like the other races where that you really want the Tech 2 guns. The other strength of Minmatar is they're kind of fast. The weakness of Minmatar is probably that it's a little bit harder to tank them as well as the other races, in my opinion. I mean, certainly a Maelstrom's pretty fucking tanky, the shield tank, and has a lot of mid slots. But you really don't have like a tanky. There isn't a shield repping Minmatar cruiser. It's kind of missing from the line. Their tank bonus. Like the Breacher. You have the Breacher, and then on the other end you have a Cyclone, and it's using heavy missiles, so it's not that good. And then you have Maelstroms. You really don't. They're not very tanky, but they're fast. They do a lot of damage, and they're kind of good to like hit and run ships. Let me think. I think I pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover now. That's great. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and this probably went like way longer. I can actually look and see what the time's at. We are at. Has it been an hour or something? I don't even know. Yeah, this is my longest video yet. Daunting, especially hungover. But it went alright. I kind of babbled through it a little bit. I probably could have made it shorter if I would have actually practiced it. But I've kind of figured out if I took too much time to like researching and everything perfect on these, I just wouldn't make as much videos. And I'm trying to put them out almost every day. Every time I have time before work, I make a video. Then I get a little game time in and do my normal daily routine. So I understand that a lot of people. One of my good friends, Dr. Bronner, he told me. He was talking to me earlier. He's like, "Oh, you need to probably prepare for these a little bit better." And I was like, "You know what, though? It's like I don't think I'd make as many of them. It's just a lot of work to really go through and pre-plan all this stuff." And with Eve, you kind of fumble your way through a lot of things. You're kind of doing things half-cocked, trying to figure out things on the fly, that sort of thing. So I figured doing the videos kind of like that would be good. It'll show some of the critical thinking behind stuff. And like I said, with the ship types, there's so many ships in this game. It's really hard. I don't have them all memorized. I still get certain ones confused about this and that, or I have a general idea of what they do. But just knowing that it's easier to memorize what are the races bonus for, what kind of guns are they bonus for, what kind of tanking are they bonus for, how fast are they. Those kind of things are pretty general, and you can kind of cover a whole race and just keep note of the exceptions to those rules. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of identify, or as an FC or just a guy out soloing or whatever, what level of threat. And it's good just every time you see something on D-scan and I see this ship, what's a Garmer? And because there's so many pirate ships out there, you see all those little squares up at the top of the screen over here. I didn't even get into all these pirate ships. There's tons and tons of ships, and like they're mixes. Basically, these get Galente and Caldari bonuses. They get the shield resist bonus, and they get the missile damage bonus, and they get drone bonuses. And then there's Sancha, which get the Amar laser bonuses, but they also get a unique afterburner speed bonus. They go almost as fast as an MWD with afterburners. Then Blood Raiders are like another Amar pirate group. They get bonus to energy newts and Nos, one of the Amar ewars, and the Webs, one of the Minmatar ewars. And Angel is like a Minmatar. They basically are Minmatar ships that get bonus from if you have the Galente skill, but they're all projectile boats and they're all very fast. That's where Angel shines. They have the fastest battleship, cruisers, frigates. They're very, very fast. Serpentis is very similar to Angel, but they use hybrids instead of projectiles. There's that Vindicator I was talking about earlier when I thought it was a Galente ship. It uses the same Galente model, but it's in fact not. It's a Serpentis ship. And the Sisters of Eve, you've probably heard of it as Stero. It's a drone. It gets drone bonuses and armor resist like the ewar. Drone bonuses like Galente, and it's made for like running sites, probing, stuff of that nature, hacking, probing. Stratius is the cruiser version. That's the thing. And whatchamacallit, Nestor is the battleship version. It also has Logi bonuses for large or remote repair. And then you have Mordu's. Mordu's are very scary. Watch out for these guys, Garmers. They get like the Galente point range bonus, and they get the Caldari missile bonuses. So they're very kitey ships. They will point you from a fucking mile away, and they'll shoot missiles at you until you die. And you, like I was talking about kiting earlier, they're very fast as well and agile, so you will have trouble catching them. You can't escape that point range. They have time to react, and yeah, they're just tough ships to deal with. So Garmer, Orthus is the cruiser, and Barghest is the battleship. And I just want to go over those real fast. We'll leave it right there. Things. I want to first give a shout out to the music, because I hate to not to give credit where credit is due. Where was that song I played? I thought I had it open still, but I don't. Let me just check my bookmarks. I want to say subscribe, bookmark this page if you enjoy the videos. If you have new bros that are new, send them my way and say, hey, check out these videos. They'll help you out. It'll help me out. Shoot, I don't know if I didn't bookmark that song, so I can't remember what it was, but it was a really good song, and I hate not giving credit, but I guess today I'm going to have to be the guy that doesn't give credit where credit is due. I believe it was the group was called 126ers, but I can't see the song now. Oh no, it was that Tango song. Where is it? It was Tango something. It's like on the rooftop or something. 7th Floor Tango by Solid Partner. That was the music. Always give credit where credit is due. Even to your enemies. I Want Alpha is our corp in game. If you're a new player, we'd love to have you. We're not going to be, most of the hand holding is going to be done through these videos, so we don't have to repeat ourselves a bazillion times, but we're always happy to help people out. And if you're a new bro and you're a cool dude and you want to hang out with some other cool dudes and just kind of chill, we'd love to have you. Come on down and we'll help you make a little bit of ISK, get in some fights, and teach you along the way, and hopefully you'll have a good time with us. What else? That seems to be everything. I'm Dr. Barmitzvah. This has been I Want Alpha, episode X. That's X6, the longest episode I've done. I'm kind of hungover, so it's a little bit of a scatterbrained episode, but I just wanted to get a lot of that stuff out of the way because it is so confusing to new players. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I love you. Have a great day.